Hey there, Tiffany Thomas with wealthytiffany.com, and in today's video I want to share with you how to never pay interest on credit cards. And before we dive in, if you are ready for financial freedom, comment freedom below in the comments, and if you are serious about fast tracking your financial freedom, click the link below this video in the description and I can help you do that. All right, you guys, let's talk about how to never pay interest on credit cards, because it's ridiculous how much people pay in interest on credit cards. And it's scary as well as ridiculous. So let's address this and not pay any more interest on credit cards. And I really like this quote. I'm going to butcher it a little bit, but something about those who understand how compound interest works earn it, and those who don't pay it. So those who understand interest, they're not paying interest. They're receiving that interest. And those who don't understand it, they're the ones paying it. Let's not pay that interest anymore and let's start earning it. So I want to share with you guys 5 different things that have helped me to never pay interest on credit cards. I got my first credit card, I want to say it was 18. I'm not 100% sure, but it was definitely when I was younger and either right around high school or beginning of college. And I had gone into the mall to go shopping for clothes, like I used to do all the time. And I went into Maurice's, it's a women's clothing store, and they had said, hey, do you want to open a credit card and get, I think it was 10% or 20% off your purchase today? And I thought, oh, yeah, I do. Let's do it. So I opened one up and got approved. And I think that was my first credit card. And that was over 20 years ago. So I've been using credit cards for over 20 years and have never paid interest on a single credit card. So I want to share these tips with you guys so that they can hopefully help you to not pay interest on credit cards. And I still have multiple credit cards today that I use because I really like earning the reward points that I get on those credit cards. It's like free money to me. And I get that not everyone is good at handling credit cards, but for those of us that can work with credit cards and not pay the interest, always pay our balance in full, it's a really great benefit because you can get those free rewards. And a lot of people use the travel rewards, or you can do just the cash back, or you can buy gift cards if you're already going to be shopping at certain stores. So it's a really nice perk. Let's dive in and talk about the 5 different things that helped me to never pay interest on a credit card for over 20 years of my using credit cards. So the first thing is actually understanding how interest works. And this is really important because I've actually seen this. So I had a roommate that didn't understand this concept. She was just paying the minimum balance on her credit cards, which was really scary to me. I found out that she was doing this and I was like, wait a minute, do you understand what's happening here? You're paying so much more for the items that you have purchased by just paying your minimum payment because you're paying so much in interest, and you are going to have years and years worth of paying off these credit cards for these small purchases that you're making now. So let me just go over how credit card interest works, and I want to share an example with you so that you can kind of get an idea on how much you would actually be paying if you were just to pay the minimum payment on your credit card every month. There is this website, it's on bankrate.com, and they have a credit card calculator. So I just wanted to show you this example. Let's say you have $10,000 on your credit card for whatever purchases you've been making. And let's say it's at a 20% interest, because I had looked to see the average is actually 19.24 for credit cards right now. So we're just going to round that up to 20%. And let's say that's the APR, the annual percentage rate that you're paying on your credit card, your interest rate you're paying. And let's say that you have a minimum payment of the interest that's on your credit card plus a 1%, plus the 1% of your balance. So 1% of that $10,000 plus the interest that you're paying. So your minimum payment would be about $266. And if you were just to pay that minimum payment, it's going to take you 346 months, which is over 28 years to pay that off. And you would pay over $16,000 in interest. $16,000 in interest on a $10,000 balance. You guys, that's like more than 1.5 times of the original balance. So this is super crazy. That is the first thing that helped me not pay interest, is actually understanding how interest works and just seeing how much you're actually paying for these small purchases that you're making is crazy. So that was the first step. And then the second step is that I actually understood my own money situation. I knew how much money was coming in, how much money was going out. I knew all of my expenses, and I had the picture of my full money situation, right? I knew my expenses that I was paying every month, like rent before I bought my property, and how much I was paying for my phone, how much I was paying in utilities, and even payments that I would make either semi-annually or annually, so every 6 months or every year, like my insurance on my car. So there's all of these different expenses, and I knew how much each of those cost. So I knew how much I was spending each month, and I knew how much was coming in. I had a paycheck coming in, I had a full-time job. And so I kept track of that. And one thing that I really like now is using Personal Capital. It's a free website. You can hook all of your financial accounts to it. So you can hook all of your credit cards, your checking and savings, if you have a house, your mortgage payment, your retirement accounts, all of the different money institutions that you use, you can hook it to Personal Capital and you can see all of these things in one place, which is so handy. So you guys, if you're looking just for a simple way, if you're not really a spreadsheet kind of person and you just want a simple way to see a quick glance of all of your finances, what's happening with your finances, I really like Personal Capital. So I'm going to leave a link below. Yes, it's a referral link. And if you sign up, you'll get $20 to Amazon if you hook one of your retirement accounts to it. So feel free to do that. If you don't want to, no problem. It's just something that I like to use personally. So I had this picture of how much my expenses were. And to kind of go along with this, point number 3 is I knew I needed to have a savings. I knew there would be emergencies that would come up, and I knew I would need to have a chunk of money in my savings account for these emergencies. For example, after I had purchased my house, a while after I had to buy a new fridge, my fridge died. I had to get a new furnace, a new air conditioner. These were larger expense items. So I knew I needed to have some sort of savings. I knew I needed to have an emergency fund. So that's really important. You really want to make sure you have some money on hand to take care of these emergencies. And it doesn't have to be a lot of money. I actually did another video on this about how much you should be keeping in your emergency fund. And I know a lot of people like to say, okay, have 6 months worth of your expenses or a year, but I feel like it's really personal. So you really want to decide what's going to work for you. You want to be able to sleep at night, but you don't want to have too much of your money in savings. You want to be investing your money so you can make it work for you. But if you're just getting started, make sure you have some sort of emergency fund that you feel comfortable with that can cover emergencies. If you do have a car, like you may need to buy new tires or something could go wrong with it, or you may need to pay your deductible on that. So take those kind of, emergency items into consideration and figure out a good amount that would work for you to have in an emergency fund. So that's the third thing I did. I had money in my savings that I could use right away. So I felt really comfortable with that. And then number 4, I knew my priorities. And, it's kind of funny. I have different priorities now, of course. Things change over time, right? They change over the years. So I had different priorities back then, but I knew what they were. And I knew funding my emergency fund was number 1. And I knew that I never wanted to go into debt for things that I didn't need. I've only gone into debt for a car and for homes. So for my home, for rental properties. And that's it. Like that's all I'll go into debt for. I'm not going to I don't know, be spending money on a vacation that I can't afford to take. There was, yeah, just to give you an example, I wanted to go to Israel and Jordan and Egypt, which is a very expensive trip. And one of my girlfriends and I wanted to take this trip, and I sat down and made sure that I would have enough money for all of the expenses on the trip. Like, we did it with a tour group, part of it with a tour group. So they had, you know, an upfront cost that we had to pay. So there was that would cover our transportation and our hotel. But I also knew we would need to pay extra for food and any souvenirs that I wanted or anything extra that we wanted to do. So I made sure and I had a buffer for that, and I felt comfortable being able to afford that. I had money in my savings, so I wanted to make sure that I would still have some left for an emergency, but that I could take that money out of savings and feel really comfortable paying for the entire trip in full without paying any interest. I didn't want to put it on a credit card and not be able to pay that balance off in full. So, you know, I know my priorities, so really focus on what your priorities are, what you're willing to spend your money on, and what you're not willing to spend your money on. And I know I have friends that will take vacations and go into debt for that. They'll put it on their credit card and pay it off over time. But as you've seen, as I showed in that example, you're paying so much more that it is not worth it to do that. Just wait until you have saved up the money to go on that trip. Like, I don't know, I can't emphasize this enough. Like, it has to be a priority for you. And I get that maybe, you know, you think it's a once in a lifetime chance to do this, and maybe it is, and maybe that is a priority for you. But start working toward that. Get an extra job, start making extra income, start selling some things so you can pay for that without having to pay any credit card interest, because you'll pay so much more for it and you'll probably regret that later. Anyway, okay, so that's what I did. I knew my priorities and I wasn't going to overspend to you know, take vacations or whatever it is that I wanted to do. That's not how I wanted to have my money be spent. You know, not being able to afford it and having to pay it off over time, because it's going to cost way more than it would be worth to me. And then number 5 is knowing your due date for your credit card and using that grace period. So a lot of credit cards might give you like 21 days or 28 days, somewhere around there, to pay off your credit card in full and not have to pay any interest. So I knew when that due date was, and I would pay off my credit card in full every single time. The only exception to this is when I had a 0% interest rate on my credit card. So there was a time when I wanted to finish my basement at my place, and I ended up putting half of that on my credit card because they had offered me a 0% interest rate. So I could pay that off over time, and I knew I would pay it off in full before that 0% interest rate, that intro rate that they were giving me, was going to end. Like, I planned that out so I would not be paying any interest. It would all be paid off when that introductory 0% rate was gone. Because right after that's gone, it's going to go up to the 19.24% or whatever it is, that normal rate on your credit card, interest rate on your credit card. And you don't want to have any sort of balance when that comes into play. So if you are not going to be able to pay off something in full, if they are giving you a 0% interest for a certain amount of time, then don't do it. Like, don't take that risk. So that was the 5th thing that I did. I used that grace period. I knew when the due date was, and I paid it off in full by the due date. And that also helps your credit score because you're not utilizing so much of your credit limit. You're keeping those balances low, which pushes your credit score higher. So that's another benefit. And just not to mention, there's no worry of having to pay these credit cards off over time and having that debt hanging over your head. That's not there when you are not paying interest on your credit cards. So you guys, hopefully you found this video helpful, and please like it. Please like hit the like button and share it with someone else who would like to hear this information. And please hit the subscribe button to subscribe to my YouTube channel. That will really help me out. And if you guys have other ideas about content you want me to create, please post that in the comments below. And let me know what you have experienced with credit cards. Maybe you used to pay credit card debt or credit card interest, but you don't anymore. And, share with us what the switchover was, what helped you change. I would love to hear that in the comments. And if you are serious about fast tracking your financial freedom, make sure and click the link below this video so that I can help you do that. And I will see you guys in the next one. Thanks.